On this edition of The American Veteran, we meet veterans using the GI Bill to pursue degrees in the arts, veterans using yoga therapy, VA renovates and restores historic buildings to create shelters for homeless veterans, and the daring story of a former World War II POW. All that and more coming up on The American Veteran. Welcome to The American Veteran, brought to you by the Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you know that you can use your post-9/11 GI Bill benefit for on-the-job training, apprenticeships, and non-college degree programs? The fact is, if you're creative, you can probably find a way to use your benefits to study or train in just about any field that interests you. We recently met a group of young veterans who are using VA's Vocational Rehabilitation Program and GI Bill benefits to pursue careers in the fine arts.
Army veteran Deshondon Jeans takes assorted materials, almost anything from anywhere, and assembles them into what's called collage art.
It is basically two-dimensional with little three-dimensional quality.
Then I'll be able to cut it with a pair of scissors.
So collage, assemblage, it's me taking many different materials and adhering them to basically a two-dimensional surfaces.
Deshondon is just one of more than a dozen military veterans now studying art, with financial assistance from VA, at the world-famous Corcoran College of Art and Design in Washington, D.C.
I'm just really drawn to being able to say what I want to say through materials, designing something for someone to look at to deliver a message that I have.
Judas Resendez is another Army veteran studying here with support from the GI Bill. He served in Iraq and lost parts of 2 limbs. Following his recovery, he came to the Corcoran to study ceramics.
I actually started prior at a community college, and that's where I really found my path towards art and actually ceramics. For me, ceramics is such a universal tool, and there's so many different ways you can really make, and the process is really basically the same material, but creatively you're able to form it to whether it's functional or non-functional work.
Every time I flatten it, the image becomes the background again.
These students are preparing for a career in the arts and reasonably expect that this experience will offer them more than the life of a struggling artist. And in fact, their prospects appear to be pretty good. There are any number of jobs open to them in museums and galleries, but it doesn't stop there.
What's come out really recently is that someone who has a fine art education is being sought after in other forms of business and industry because the creative thinking that is engendered in this type of learning experience translates really well into a whole lot of other fields.
Air Force veteran Corinne Rodney Hopla studied photojournalism here and created this exhibit of photographs titled Incidents. Inspired by her military experience, it documents her perspective on combat-related post-traumatic stress.
In the news, we always hear about our brothers in arms, but we really don't hear too much about our sisters in arms and how they're dealing with their struggle with combat-related post-traumatic stress syndrome. So I wanted to put my own spin on it and how it affects me and my family and my space and how I view the world today.
The exhibit also includes pages torn from Corinne's handwritten journal, describing her stress-related feelings of loneliness, anger, confusion, and fear.
I unplugged the iron. I have to check to see if it's unplugged. Again, and again, and again, and again, and again.
I can use any other material that I want, but I choose to use wood.
Like Corinne, Marine Corps veteran Jeremiah Holland is attending Corcoran with the help of VA-provided vocational rehabilitation assistance. He's thrilled to be here, he told us, But at first, it took time.
For me, coming from a regiment and organization like the Marine Corps, it was about 2 years before I really felt like I could not really drop the identity of being a Marine, but assume the identity of being a student or an art student. It's a new chapter in your life, and it is difficult, but it's well worth it. I mean, these benefits are here. You paid for it with your service, and you put into the GI Bill, so you should definitely take advantage of it.
It's a message every veteran we met here was eager to share.
I think it's horrible if a person, for whatever reason, the soldier decides not to claim the benefit. It's just because they have some fear of it being hard to navigate, to receive the claim. But it's easy. I was surprised at how easy it was.
They made it 100% viable for me to come to this school, because if I didn't have the assistance of the VA, I would not be able to afford going here to the Corcoran.
You just gotta find what really excites you and what you can see yourself doing, because then it's really not work, you enjoy it. So it won't be a job, it'll just be something you enjoy.
That's something each of these veterans came to see for themselves, that in shaping their art, they themselves became shaped by it.
All eligible veterans, including those still on active duty, are encouraged to claim their education benefits. You can find more information on how to do just that at gibill.va.gov. VA medical research studies have contributed important new knowledge across a wide variety of disciplines. Recently published in the journal Stroke, the practice of yoga can help patients regain balance and mobility, even if they begin yoga years after a stroke has occurred.
I'm going to give you a little bit of everything today.
For an avid golfer like Nick Bennett, it's a perfect day to be on the golf course.
That was interference on the geese.
The occasional sand trap, or even a stray goose, may cause a certain degree of irritation, but all in all, it's a joy for Nick to be back out on the course. Which is a far cry from the challenges the former U.S. Marine Staff Sergeant faced 9 years ago when serving in Iraq. Nick was on duty on Veterans Day, November 11th, 2004, when an enemy shell exploded near his post, killing or wounding many in his unit.
I've got 5 different injuries. Part of the warhead took off the back part of my right leg, where you can actually see my femur, sciatic nerve. The nurse said you could actually put your hand through my leg that night. I've got a right shoulder where the shell casing laid it open to the bone.
After nearly a decade of treatment and rehabilitation, Nick is able to walk again and even play golf, but physical challenges remain.
I live with the reality that there's certain things in my body that aren't going to get better.
But earlier this year, long after doctors had determined they had done all that they could for him, Nick was introduced to a pilot study being conducted by medical researchers and therapists at the Roudebush VA Medical Center in Indianapolis.
All right, we'll take it.
This is a therapeutic yoga session designed for stroke patients at the VA Medical Center. Though not a stroke patient himself, Nick's head trauma, among other injuries, helped him qualify for the program, since he routinely experienced many of the same symptoms as a victim of stroke.
Many stroke patients have trouble with balance and mobility. It's one of the more common side effects of stroke. And yoga is something that helps people focus on balance and flexibility. And so we thought that might be helpful.
He was able one day to work in the yard all day.
Yoga instructor Nancy Schalk helped physicians and researchers design a therapeutic yoga program that gently guided each veteran through specific breathing exercises, stretches, and other routines to improve mobility and flexibility.
Beautiful, Nick, that's it. And we started slowly and builded on with each class. So like I said, they were having successes and successes.
For Nick Bennett, the yoga classes also helped him quiet his mind and better treat the symptoms of his head trauma. Just 4 short weeks after starting yoga therapy, he was able to grip a golf club again and head back out to the course. It was a feat few in the medical field predicted he would ever be able to do again.
With all my injuries, to come out here, it's just awesome, you know, because there's no doctor's appointments, there's no therapy appointments, and it's just one with nature and just being able to celebrate, you know, being alive.
Bennett now enjoys renewed energy and has become a member of the Wounded Warrior Initiative in order to help serve other veterans nationwide. At the VA hospital, the research specialists plan to build on their initial success by working more in depth with veterans to study the effects of similar yoga therapies on such challenges as post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injuries similar to those suffered by Nick.
All us veterans who live with post-traumatic stress disorder, who live with traumatic brain injuries, who have injuries, and that's what, you know, this research program is doing, is saying, hey, this is your new life and this is what you can do.
For Bennett, the yoga therapy continues, as do many more rounds on the golf course.
The use of complementary and alternative therapies like yoga has increased substantially in VA's healthcare system over the past decade. Today, about 9 in 10 VA facilities provide alternative approaches or refer patients to outside licensed practitioners who do. All across the country, VA is looking for ways to save money by cutting back on its inventory of vacant or underutilized properties. It's called the BURR Initiative, short for Building Utilization Review and Repurposing. In Minneapolis, for example, an historic property that had fallen out of use is now being renovated and repurposed to provide affordable housing for homeless veterans and their families.
Jerry Redmond served 3 years in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam War, but he says the hardest battle he fought was during the 4 years he spent without a place to live, homeless in his hometown of Minneapolis.
I don't want them to remember what it was like in the past.
Not long ago, Jerry Redmond was just one of as many as 700 veterans who sleep on the streets of Minnesota each night. All without a home, many without hope.
Well, let's just say that you learn what hotels you can get into with the closest bathroom to the door, so you can go in and get squared away and then just go out.
It's a daily effort to find their next meal or where they're going to sleep that night, where to clean up. So those are the things that if you don't have that, then you can't work on anything else.
But now, using these abandoned buildings, VA is offering new hope to Minnesota's homeless veterans. 12 miles from downtown Minneapolis sits Minnesota's most historic fort. Founded in the early 1800s, Fort Snelling was the center of the state's military presence for more than a century. Even today, its legacy has not been lost.
You'd be hard-pressed to find a school child in Minnesota who hasn't been to the historic fort and who hasn't seen these buildings, or anyone for that matter who's been to the airport and driven past the site and looked and seen those buildings and wondered what is going on there, why isn't something happening? I've wondered it myself for years.
So did the VA, which saw in these buildings both the past and the promise.
When I came into this job 3 years ago and I looked at it, everything is in such good shape. The wood is solid, the beams they've held for over 100 years.
That made Fort Snelling an ideal location for VA's Building Utilization Review and Repurposing Initiative, otherwise known as BURR. Launched in 1991, its goal is to take underutilized VA property all across the U.S. and repurpose it to help homeless veterans. At Fort Snelling, these houses, once used for quartermasters, will be remodeled into new homes, and these horse stables, which the American cavalry once used, will soon be apartments, marking the first time these buildings have been used since World War II.
I've been on a lot of bases, and nowhere that I've been has got history that goes back as far as here. And it's all well documented. To walk around and know that, hey, this is how it looked 100 years ago is really cool.
Some water damage, but the ceiling itself is fine.
So are the project's plans, which call for rehabbing 5 buildings total into 58 units ranging from efficiency apartments to 3-bedroom homes. These truly will be homes, And because Fort Snelling is close to both the Minneapolis VA Medical Center and to the city's light rail system, the veterans who live there will have easy access to the things they need and hopefully to a new start.
Just patience. When it happens and you get those keys in your hand, it'll all be worth it to have a place of your own. You don't have to worry about sleeping with one eye open or somebody stealing your stuff, or, it's just good.
Good that on the site of Minnesota's military past, its military veterans now have a new future.
Construction is expected to start this summer and be completed by summer of 2014. 3/4 of the cost at Fort Snelling will be paid for from private investment, leveraged through housing and historic tax credits. During World War II, a young Bill Tippins served in the European theater and was captured by the Germans. He escaped, only to be captured again and again. This is his remarkable story in his own words.
When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, my two brothers, myself, and my father all got into the service. I was with the Army paratroops. We made the first combat jump in North Africa in November 1942. We began taking islands off the coast of Italy, knocking out radar so that they couldn't pick up our bombers on the way in when they invaded Italy. In Anzio, I got blown out of a foxhole, and my assistant gunner was killed immediately. I was unconscious, and when I came to, there was this massive German. He looked at me and in perfect English, he said, "For you, the war is over." He asked me to get up, and when I started to get up, I realized that part of my intestines were protruding on the ground. He said, "We don't have anybody here that can help you." He says, "I can shoot you now and save you a lot of pain." He said, "We do have an aid station about 3 kilometers from here, and if you can make it, we'll send you back and see what they can do." Well, I made it back to their aid station, and they picked up a flat rock and sanitized it, pushed my intestines back in, and wrapped that flat rock real tight around my waist, because they said, "We don't have the capability of sewing it up here." I was put into a truck and sent into Rome, and they sewed it up. The next night, I escaped, because I knew if they ever got me out of Italy, my chances of getting away were nil. I had a watch that I traded to a German guard to turn his back for a few minutes, and I took off. And I went for about 72 hours, and I was so exhausted that I crawled up in a hayloft in a barn and fell asleep. And the next thing I know is I got a boot in the ribs, waking me up, and the farmer, if he had discovered, or they had discovered that he was trying to help me, they would have shot him. So he turned me in, and the guards came and picked me up, put me on a train, bound for Germany. And I was taken to Stalag 7A's, Stalag being the German word for their concentration camp. They had marked me with a black triangle on my knees and one in the middle of the back, and put a red dot on my knees to indicate potential escapee. They wanted me to work cleaning up the debris in Munich, and I refused to work. So they said, no work, no food. The food, because of my stomach, I couldn't eat anyway. It was the ration was a piece of bread and normally something called spinach soup without the spinach. The guards that they had on us were elderly, and so getting away from one of them was not too bad. I got away from them. I was going south, but I got picked up again. I had lost so much weight that I was easy to spot. They sent me back to the other camp, and it was run over. I was in solitary again for the previous escape, and the Russian soldier walked in there, and of course I recognized that he was not one of my regular guard, and I pointed to the flag that I had on my shoulder, which is an American flag, and he didn't speak English, and I certainly didn't speak Russian or German, and so they called for an interpreter, and I told them that I was an American. They wanted to know what I was doing in their camp. I didn't have any choice. They said, we're going to repatriate you through Odessa. And I said, how long is that going to take? And they said about 7 months. And that night I picked up a pair of pliers and I cut my way through the fence again. And it took me from 20 April until 6 May to negotiate the distance of about 70 miles. And that was sleeping in the daytime because the Germans were still on the loose, and I moved at night. On the 6th of May, I reached the Mulder River and the Americans were there. I walked across this pontoon bridge that they had, and there was a captain standing there, and he says, "You look hungry to me, soldier," and they sent me to the mess hall. And of course, my stomach probably was about the size of an egg, and 2 bites and I was full. That completed my tour in Germany, which covered about 15 months. I came back to the United States and I was in the hospital for about 90 days. I got out of the hospital and I went to work for civil service.
Bill continues to live an active life with his daughter and son-in-law in Virginia. The VHA National Center for Health Promotion and Disease Prevention hosts numerous programs to encourage healthy living. They produced a series of whiteboard videos we will showcase on the American Veteran. This video highlights VA's MOVE weight management program.
There's more than one way to participate in MOVE, including individual care, group classes, or home-based programs. You participate where you want, when you want, and how you want. Joe and Sally made changes. Simple and gradual lifestyle changes. They ate more veggies and fruits, used the stairs, walked during lunch, and just plain moved. Eat wisely, move more, weigh less. And that's what MOVE is all about. Join MOVE to maintain a healthier weight for life, prevent and control many diseases and conditions, feel better, and have more energy. It takes time and effort to make these changes, so making a commitment to MOVE for at least 6 months is critical to success. You can do it. Read other veterans' success stories at www.move.va.gov. Talk with your healthcare team and move towards your healthy weight goals today. VA Healthcare is defining excellence in the 21st century.
You can learn more about the MOVE weight management program online at move.va.gov. That concludes this edition of the American Veteran. The Department of Veterans Affairs is honored to bring you this program. If you'd like to get in touch or obtain more information about VA benefits and services, you can call us, visit our website, or contact your nearest vet center. And if you're a veteran who's troubled in some way, please call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255.